Hi, I'm Sam Vokes at Wycombe Wanderers, and you're listening to Wycombe Sound.
The Wycombe Wanderers Show.
Welcome to the latest edition of the Wycombe Wanderers Show. Coming up in the next hour, football returns, I know, and at the now getting a little more familiar time of 12:30 at Adams Park on Saturday, the visit of Peterborough United, the first time the two teams have met since that cup final at Wembley. Some very interesting stats about the goals scored in the games between them as well. A 0-0, highly unlikely. We'll preview that with Phil in just a few moments' time. Later on in the show, we'll hear from manager Matt Bloomfield as well. We'll find out how the players have been preparing after the international break and get a bit of team news as well ahead of the visit of Posh on Saturday. Lots to bring you as well, including a roundup of the FA Cup draw, which has happened since we last spoke. A player who's gone out on loan, at least one, I think, and lots more to bring you as well. Speaking of the FA Cup draw, York City at home, that's who you were pulled out of the hat to face, and in a quirk of history, sort of, the current manager of York City is a former Wycombe Wanderers player, and the last time the two sides met, the manager in the opposite dugout had also previously, delete the word, that makes the most sense, played for Wycombe as well. Many appearances actually, not briefly, but we'll be hearing from the man who took over from the Chairboys boss, Paul Bent, the game after that in 1986. Didn't that make any sense? Kind of lost myself there. All thanks to Wycombe Wanderers Ex-Players Association. Alan Gage will be hearing from a bit later on, ahead of their annual dinner as well, which is getting ever closer. 15th of November for that. Also, following the Chair Girls' progress too, unfortunately their FA Cup run ended last Sunday. They were held 3-3 by Comets, but went out 3-1 on penalties. We'll speak to Giulia Livi, who scored one of the spot kicks at Burnham on Sunday in front of a record crowd for the season as well. So good news for the Chairboys. We'll bring you news of an appointment as part of the backroom staff as well. All that and more to come in the next sort of 50 minutes or so. But first, let's catch up as always with Phil. And as mentioned, since we last spoke, we've had the first round proper draw of the FA Cup, and always brilliant to enjoy FA Cup fever and the romance of the Cup as well.
Absolutely. Love the FA Cup. And, I think a non-league side is always beneficial in round one. No disrespect to non-league teams, but it's a bit different. If you get a league team, especially someone in your division, it's can be a bit weary. But when you've got someone like York City, a famous old club with a big league history, but sadly for them, they've been sort of lost in non-league for a few years now, and they're on good form. But it'd be good to reacquaint ourselves with them at home as well. So hopefully a really good chance to progress. Especially with the squad depth Wycombe have as well. Adam Hinchelwood managing York City, a player who used to play with Blooms at Wycombe Wanderers at the end of his career before he had to sadly hang up his boots due to injury. So this is a really, really enticing game. Wycombe will want to progress, of course they will. But as will York, they'll see the opportunity for banana skin in the FA Cup. You mentioned the romance, and everybody loves to see non-league teams put in teams from the top end of League One out in the first round. And we don't want that to happen, but we need to be on our game because York will bring it for Wycombe, and hopefully a chance to progress and tell some brilliant cup stories this year.
And I know when we spoke last time, we knew that the manager had been shortlisted for Manager of the Month, and unfortunately didn't get it. But as we said, it really just kind of highlights, what great work he and the team did, especially in September.
Yeah, look, nomination's fantastic. Obviously, these things are done on results and other bits and pieces, and Steve Bruce had an electric month as well. But to be in that top four for those nominations, fantastic achievement, and I'm sure there'll be more nominations to come, and hopefully scooping the main prize. But I know the others won't say they're superstitious, and I haven't checked the stats out on this. I said I would, but I haven't got around to it yet. But if you do win, then they always call it the curse of Manager of the Month, don't they? So hopefully we'll avoid that.
One draw and one defeat for Steve Bruce in October.
There you go. You see? The curse.
And it's getting towards Halloween as well. Might be worth mentioning. And also this week, Jack Matten's gone on loan as well to Bracknell. It's really nice, isn't it, to hear that some of these youngsters are getting the chances to play football, and especially locally as well. Yeah,
because it means they're close to home, being Wycombe. They're still around the training grounds, and it's about the minutes now. You can train with the first team squad and be amongst the first team squad at Harlington, but that competitive match minutes in the National League South, National League, etc., those sorts of levels, they really provide I think the physical tests that they need to develop as well. But those match minutes where it really means something, and they'll be playing alongside players who will need those results as well, and it really kind of keeps them sharp, and that's great news for Wycombe Wanderers as well. They develop as players, they develop mentally too. They get into that match fitness, they become strong and ready if they're required as well. Because with the non-league loans, you can recall in between windows, you can make them shorter as well. So yeah, it means that they're ready to roll should they be required. Be it for an EFL trophy match or even in the league squad if required too. So, look, great opportunities for them to go away and learn and develop. And we saw it with Declan Skura last season, and we got a much better player back from Ebbsfleet as a result of those match minutes and experience, because there's just there's no way of replacing that. And it's a bit of a rite of passage, I think, for a player.
And just with the visit of Peterborough at lunchtime at Adams Park on Saturday, I'm sure fans and players and staff alike are really excited with the return of football after the international break.
Yeah, look, it's an international break that isn't ideal. I think Wycombe, on record as saying they'd have loved to have played that match at Stockport last Saturday. It wasn't to be. That only 2 matches were played in League One. As I said before, I think the EFL really need to look at this. To kind of stop the disruption, because it's the fans that suffer at the end of the day. People who would have booked travel, hotels or other plans up north to coincide with these matches, and then they get cancelled at a week's notice. It's the fans who suffer. But Wycombe had good momentum as well. They'll take the positives from the break, because they've been able to spend more time at Harlington and together training and developing their patterns for this game up against Peterborough. But like you say, it's great to be back at Adams Park. Early kickoff again, moved for television, and Peterborough come in to this one, and the match screams goals, goals, goals. They've let in the most amount of goals in League One. They've scored the most amount of goals in League One. Wycombe have scored a lot of goals as well and conceded a few too. So I'll be interested to know what the price is for a 0-0 draw. It looks very unlikely going into this one, but I don't want to jinx it, Colin.
No, absolutely. And the home team as well, in fantastic form at the moment, looking to extend their unbeaten run. I don't know if you can count Stockport and Mansfield as unbeaten games, can you?
Well, we didn't lose them, did we? So, yeah,
But it must be nice. We spoke to Jack on the show last week, and the momentum that we talked to you about as well, but such a great feeling of confidence and belief for the players as well.
Yeah, momentum is the big word in sport, and if you've got it, you feel almost an inch or two taller coming into matches, and yeah, it's important to keep that rolling. And sometimes when the international break comes, some teams who are on a bad run will use that as a sort of as a reset to kind of come back afterwards and try and start a run. When you're on a run and the break comes, it's about just keeping that spirit going and keep moving, and that's certainly what's been happening here at Harlington. So looking forward to kick-off on Saturday. In what should really hopefully be a really entertaining game. And obviously the last time we met Peterborough was at Wembley in the cup final, and we lost that one late on. So hopefully some retribution will be dished out on Saturday.
No, absolutely. And on previous shows, you talked about the 10 games as being a real gauge. I mean, it seems to take a while to get to the 10th game, but this will be that game.
Yes, yeah. So next week we can start talking about the league table in earnest without me rolling out the cliches of let's get to 10 games. But look, it's a really good sample size. And yes, there'd have been teams who've had maybe tough fixtures in those 10, and I include Wycombe in that. The first 2 we know were tough: Wrexham away, Birmingham at home. And the table doesn't lie after 10 games, and there'll be some people or chairman maybe getting a little bit worried perhaps if they're at the wrong end of the table at this stage, and then there's another international break coming November, so this is a busy time if there are changes to be made in management and stuff around the division, so there could be more change coming at the bottom end of the table. I'm pleased to say Wycombe obviously at the top end of the table as we speak, and long may that continue well past the 10 game mark. And if Wycombe were to win on Saturday against Peterborough, then they would really cement themselves in those positions too. And there's a game in hand or two to be had for Wycombe as well against some of the teams around them in the table because of the aforementioned international breaks.
And of course, things might look quite different when we next speak as well, because we'll play Burton as well, who are yet to get a win, of course.
Yes, yeah, and they're the teams you worry about as well. They're backed into a corner. They often come out, with their teeth gnashing and snarling and wanting to sort of get that get that monkey off their back and get the 3 points on the board. They may well win Saturday. We're not sure yet, but teams like that are dangerous. And Burton has been a tough place to go down the years. We have had a few wins there too, but we've also been on the wrong end of a couple of results there as well. It's a tight ground in every aspect, certainly in the press area. And the fans there will get on top and demand more from their team, and if they're at home as well, then the players will need to respond to that. So Wycombe will have to be on their mettle for that one too. But yeah, it's very much another cliche to be rolled out here, one game at a time. Peterborough first, then it'll all be all eyes on the Brewers.
Enjoy your lunchtime kick-off on Saturday.
I will indeed. Thank you very much, Colin.
Pleasure to chat to Phil, as always. He'll be bringing you full match commentary from Adams Park on Saturday. Wycombe Wanderers against Peterborough United. You'll be pleased to know I've checked on Odds Checker 16-1 for a 0-0 draw on Saturday, but highly unlikely due to the goals scored and the goals conceded on behalf of the visitors. So should be a very good game indeed. As Phil mentioned, Wycombe doing very well in the table at the moment. And we talked earlier in the chat with Wycombe being drawn against York City at Adams Park in the first round of the Emirates FA Cup. The draw was made on Monday evening. Tie we played on the first weekend of November. The Minster men currently third in the National League, and they defeated Biggleswade in the fourth qualifying round, which is quite exciting, mainly because I don't think the word Biggleswade has been used on the show previously. So that's making its debut. We've had some long words recently on this programme, and Biggleswade is certainly fairly lengthy. I don't know what you get on a score for Scrabble for that. Let's bring you a return of the notice board. I don't think we've had a notice board for a while, have we? I think it might have been faulty or something, not secured to the wall very well. You might have heard earlier in the week that the club have delighted to announce the appointment of John Goodwin as the new head of performance and medical. He starts on Monday the 4th of November, which is probably sooner than we'd be happy to realise. It's only a couple of weeks, isn't it? Well, if you're listening to this on the podcast, it was Monday the 4th of November he started. The role will be integral, the club say, to their aims of elevating to higher levels, aligning with its long-term vision of developing homegrown talent from the academy. His leadership alongside the key staff in the performance departments will focus on optimising the physical and mental well-being of all players, ensuring peak performance throughout the season and beyond. Sounds a key role at the club. In addition to overseeing physical conditioning, data analysis and recovery and injury prevention, John will be working closely with the coaching staff on nutrition, lifestyle guidance, mental resilience and the psychological aspects of performance as well. His dedication to the long-term development of younger players will play a crucial part in strengthening the academy's impact on the first team. Chairman Dan Rice, speaking to the club's website, said that it's a significant appointment for the club as they continue to raise the standards at which they're going to be operating. John's extensive experience across both football and Olympic sports makes him the ideal candidate to lead the club's performance and medical teams. He says that they're delighted to see the influence he'll be having on the team's progress. Furthermore, in line with the club's ambitions, they're investing in a newly designed gym at the Harlington training base, a facility that will provide cutting-edge resources to support player development and enhance performance on the pitch as well. It'll also reinforce the club's commitment to creating an elite environment for success. These investments, he continues, are essential as they strive on field achievements and also foster the long-term success of the club's first-class academy, which will be the cornerstone of their future, he added. John Goodwin said that he's excited to be stepping into the role with Wycombe, as it's an amazing opportunity to join a club with its heritage, current potential and culture and vision for the future. Speaking to the manager, the owner and staff at the club, John said it feels like a forward-looking, aspirational environment, one that impresses you and gives you absolute best to gives your absolute best to. I didn't read that bit very well. One that inspires you to give your absolute best to the mission. You might be able to read it better yourself. It's on the club's website.
Across High Wycombe and South Buckinghamshire, and on your smart speaker.
Play Wycombe Sound.
This is Wycombe Sound.
Second part of the Wycombe Wanderers Show still to come. We'll hear from manager Matt Bloomfield and Wycombe Wanderers women's player Giulia Livi, and not even in that order either. But first, thanks to the Wycombe Wanderers Ex-Players Association, who this week I haven't been enjoying a lunch with. That turns out not to be as regular as I first imagined. did last week, if you're listening to the show. Otherwise, you won't get the reference at all. Been chatting to a former Wycombe Wanderers manager who took over the game after the team last played York City in the FA Cup. That was in the third round in 1986. And Alan Gage, who was Paul Bentz's assistant at the time, led the team to relegation, then promotion, and had a number of players which I'm sure you'll be very familiar with as well. I've been speaking to Alan, and as you can imagine, fantastic to relive some memories which, just a mere almost 40 years ago.
Well, I was about to say the same thing, because I was thinking about how long ago it was, and it was nearly 40 years. And that's half a lifetime, isn't it?
Does it feel like a long time ago, or does it feel very comparatively recent and quite fresh in your memory still?
Well, there's lots of things that are fresh in my memory, but certain things have gone completely. But yeah, I'm sure I can remember. I mean, we're talking about York City, aren't we? I'm sure I can remember a few things that happened there. But yeah, I mean, it just goes by so quickly, and so much goes on. But yeah, it does seem a long time ago.
So what are your memories of first taking over from Paul Bentz?
We were trained at Bisham Abbey, and he came up to me and said, "Look, I'm going to resign." I said, "Why?" And I think he had an issue at work and whatever. I said, "Well, I'll come with you. If you're leaving, I'm leaving too." He said, "No, you stay on. You've got a job." I said, "Well, no, I don't think I will. I think they'll go and get somebody else." I mean, my experience of management was nil. All I had was a couple of seasons with Paul as his assistant. Anyway, he resigned and whatever, and Brian Lee said to me, "We'd like you to take over." And I assumed he meant till the end of the season. So kind of that's the basis I was doing it on. I think I'm right in saying that York City was Paul's last game, wasn't it?
Yes, I believe so. And how did you find that sort of step up from being an assistant to actually taking charge yourself?
Well, to be honest, I was umming and ahhing whether to go into coaching or management or whatever a couple of years before that. And I was at the stage of my career when I had a bit of a niggling injury in my ankle and it wouldn't go away. And then I got a phone call from Paul one day saying, "I've just got the job as Wycombe manager. I want you to be my assistant." I thought, sorry? I mean, I wasn't expecting that completely out of the blue. Especially Wycombe. I mean, in those days, Wycombe was possibly the biggest non-league club in the country. He said, "Do you want to think about it?" I said, "Well, I've thought about it. Yeah, I'll take it." So that was that. But what the benefit to me was, all through your playing career, you look at the managers that you play for and the coaches you play for, and you pick out the good bits and you dismiss the bad bits. And there's probably a lot more bad bits than good bits. But my time, I think Paul was there a year and a half, was it? Or 2.5 years, can't remember. I benefited greatly from being his assistant rather than just jumping straight into the job, because I kind of took a lot from Paul and what he did and the way he did it, because he was really good with the players, which I think I think that comes naturally or it doesn't. I think there are a lot of people that want to go in and demand this and demand that, and I don't think those people last very long anyway. So yeah, I really benefited from being with Paul for the time I was with him. And so the step into management really wasn't that great. I just carried on doing what I was doing before. Obviously, with a lot more responsibility. So yeah, but I would advise anybody going into it today, do your apprenticeship first. Be an assistant manager or a coach or whatever, rather than jump straight into management.
And what was that York game like, knowing that Paul would be leaving?
Well, it's strange really, because I mean, it was FA Cup third round, wasn't it? And it's one of those when you get the joy, you could get Manchester United or Liverpool or Arsenal, something like that, and we got York City, which was fine. We were up there, and it was strange really, because what didn't help was Bill Clear, who was on the committee at the time and was a local referee. He was a really, really nice bloke. Great bloke. I mean, possibly the worst referee I've ever seen in my life, but really nice bloke. And his role was to get us from the hotel to the ground, which was about a 20-minute journey, I think, and we got lost. And this was the days before Google Maps and things like that, and they were going mad at the front. Brian Lee wasn't very happy with it, and I think we got there about 20 minutes before the kickoff, which was you had no time at all because they didn't delay the kick-off. So we literally had 2 minutes on the pitch, came back in and went straight back out again, which isn't the best preparation at all. So in terms of the changeover, it kind of went by the board. We were looking to win the game, obviously, but we knew we were at a massive disadvantage because we haven't warmed up. And I think I'm right in saying we lost 2-0, didn't we?
Yes, but did it feel like it was quite a close game? And also, as you say, with the lack of preparation, but also obviously the fact that Wycombe in the Gola League at the time and taking on a league side, especially in the third round of the Cup.
Oh yeah, I mean it was huge because obviously you want to win it because if you didn't get Manchester United that round, you get them the next round. And it was a very close game, and we just conceded 2 sloppy goals, and it seemed a bit of an anti-climax really. Everyone's excited about being in the FA Cup and possibility of playing a big club, and then it just goes. So it was quite an anti-climax, and I don't think getting lost helped either on the way to the ground.
I imagine the journey back wasn't much fun either.
No, I mean it never is when you lose anyway. But when you lose like that, it made it even worse. It was just very quiet on the way back. And
a really nice connection as well that Viv Busby was the manager of York, a former Wycombe man himself.
Yeah, he was at the time, yeah. I mean, he sadly passed on, hasn't he?
Yes.
Yeah, strange, and they've drawn him again this year.
It's strange, isn't it?
Reverse this year because Wycombe are now a league club and York aren't.
Yeah, it's strange, isn't it? Because I guess football is quite sort of cyclical like that. There are teams who were bigger years ago and have now sort of dropped away, and the other way around as well.
Yeah, I find that quite sad actually, because when you're a kid and you sort of look through all the football teams and you get all the programmes, and there are so many teams now that go out of that have gone out of the league, and it's now if you actually look at the league tables, there are so many teams that kind of were in the conference or amateurs in those days. And I don't like that actually. I like the old teams as they were when there was no promotion and no relegation.
And similarly, it seems strange in League One, doesn't it, to have teams like Bolton and Birmingham?
Yeah, I mean, well, I think that's all down to money. I think a lot of clubs have got lots of money and they progress, and a lot of big clubs fall on hard times. Which Bolton exactly. I mean, these are the sorts of teams that Wycombe are playing now. When Wycombe was a non-league team, a lot of these were Premier Division teams.
That's right. It must be strange, especially for yourself, to have led the team against teams like Kettering or other teams like Barnet, and then to see now who the teams that the opposition they're facing.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, it's probably good for the game, but you get teams in non-league that in the Conference South or whatever, and they've got massive grounds, but not a very good football team.
But it must have been a great benefit for you to have worked with the players already as a number two, and then sort of taking charge of the team as well.
Yeah, I mean that's really what made it easier, to be honest. I mean, Paul was really good, but I don't know if you remember or not. But when we went into the conference, we had a park team. We had players that literally came off the park. We had a lot of good players, but not at conference level. And the problem in those days was that Brian Lee, God rest his soul, because he was absolutely the best thing since sliced bread. But he was of that ilk who thought that you don't want money to play for Wycombe. It's an honour to play for Wycombe, which in those days that was kind of going out the window because players were playing for the money. And if they could get 10 quid extra to play for Barnet, they're going to play for Barnet. And Wycombe weren't willing to pay the money out. And that's why, or one of the reasons why, we got relegated. We just did not have the ability to attract players who wanted more money.
Did that make it sort of quite frustrating for you, or did you sort of relish the challenge, if you like, of working under those conditions?
The first 5 months of my managerial career, we got relegated. So it wasn't exactly easy, but you had to make do with what you had. And it wasn't till, was it the following year, where they realised that, if you're going to go up, you've got to spend a few more pounds, which we did straight away. We went straight back up. But we had a far, far better team. The team that I took up was far, far superior to the team that we went up with Paul. because we had, I'm not saying we had lots of money, we had more than we did at that time. And we had an excellent team, a really good team that won the Isthmian League as it was then, and went back into the conference.
Was that really rewarding for yourself as well, because you sort of built that and overseen that promotion?
Oh, very much so, yeah, and it still is to this day. I mean, at the end of that season when we got relegated, which I've got to add, it was so unlucky. It's not true. We were not the worst team in the league by a long, long way, but we got relegated. But the experience of that, I mean, I didn't expect to keep the job. To be honest, you know, I've been in management a couple of years as assistant, and then sort of 5 or 6 months as the manager. And I expected Brian Lee to say, thanks, but see you later. But he didn't. He said exactly the opposite. He said, we want you to stay. We think you're going to do a good job. And he said, so you're keeping the job, and the first thing you want to do is give Eddie McCluskey at Enfield a ring. He's letting a couple of players go. So, okay, so they phoned Eddie McCluskey, who was the Enfield manager at the time, and he said, yeah, I'm letting Noel Ashford and Keith Barrett go. And I couldn't believe what he was saying. I said, are you serious? He went, yeah. I think they'd had some kind of falling out. So I phoned them both, met them both in London. We went for a drink and got on like a house on fire, and they both signed. And that was the big, big turning point in Wycombe's, not history, but, well, I suppose it's history really, because that they turned us into a really, really good side. We got a few more players in, and we walked the league the next year. And a lot of that was down to Keith Barrett, who was both England internationals, and Noel Ashford, who was probably one of the best non-league players of all time. And that came from one conversation with Brian Lee, just to give Eddie McCluskey a ring, and that was it. Fantastic.
And of course, around that time, you had players like Gary Lester and obviously Mark West, and you know, so many other players who had experience at that level.
No, Gary Lester in goal, yeah, and we had Neil Price at left back, who just played in the cup final for Watford. Keith Barrett at the back, Graham Bressington, who was an unsung hero. What a player he was. Noel Ashford playing a kind of number 10 role. A lad called Kevin Durham, who also passed away very young. He was a fantastic player as well. So yeah, it's a really, really good team.
And around that time as well, it must have felt quite special, as you say, because you built the team to that promotion, and you know there were good crowds, and it must have felt like a special group.
It was a special group. It was it's a really well balanced team. I mean, you can have all the good players you like, but as England have proved recently, but it doesn't make a good team. And we had a really, really well balanced team. We had a lad up front called Andy Graham, who played for Wealdstone in the Amateur Cup final, and he was a blinding goal scorer. So yeah, it was a very, very well balanced team, and everybody got on, and that makes all the difference in the world. We're all kind of mates together, I suppose, and it really worked. Really, really worked.
And as you say, so special that the team were seen as such a high performing non-league side.
Yeah, I mean, it was obvious when we went up into the conference we weren't going to come straight back down again like we did the time before. Well, obviously, what's happened to Wycombe since then is it's great. I mean, we still go to the Wycombe ex-players dinner every year, and all the old boys come back, and it's Wycombe is a fantastic football club. It's well run, and I think the way what they're doing at the moment, if they can consolidate, which they appear to be in League One. They went up to Championship once and came back down again, but that may have been financial as well, I suppose. But certainly they are now an established league club.
And could you have imagined that at the time, like when you were in charge? And I guess obviously every manager hopes that they'll be able to get into the football league and remain there and be established. But it seems quite such a big jump, doesn't it?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I mean, to be honest, that's the last thing on your mind when you're in the Isthmian League. Assuming trying to think about being in the football just didn't come into play. You never even thought about that. It seemed miles away, absolutely miles away. But they've done it. They've got a great new manager, who I really respect. And long may it last.
And are there any other particular games that really stand out from your time in charge?
Yeah, there was one game we played Leek Town in the I think it's the FA Cup. Possibly this is when Paul was in charge, and we drew 5-5, and it's the most unbelievable game I've ever seen. Absolutely fantastic. And there's another one. We played Windsor and Eton in the Berks and Bucks, and their manager John Clements had just gone full time the day before, and we beat them 13-1. I think Andy Graham got 6, and it was. I mean, I think that season, every single game was with a team who played exactly the way I like to see football played. To be honest with you, modern day football, the way people like Manchester City play it, that doesn't appeal to me one bit. I find it so boring, it's not true. It's just sideways, backwards, sideways. But the football we played, I can honestly say, was some of the best football I've seen at non-league level.
It's fascinating as well, because so many ex-players you speak to, they say, don't really have an interest in the game now, but when they were playing it and when they were involved, it was sort of everything to them.
Oh, well, yeah, well, it is. It's, even... I was talking to someone the other day about, I played football till I was 60, and it's your life. Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday is your life. That's just what you do. And basically, when you go from player to coach or manager, you're just carrying on that. And it's the camaraderie that keeps you there. It's not just the football. It's the drinking, drink in the bar with the lads afterwards. It's all part of your life. In fact, it's a massive part of your life, even at lower levels. And there's nothing wrong with that at all. Nothing wrong with that at all. It's great.
And as you say, it's so fantastic that you can still reflect on that and still meet with players that you've played with and other managers as well at the ex-players dinner, which is coming up soon as well. And really nice that you've still got those common things that sort of bond you together, if you like.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Yeah, I mean, as I said, the Wycombe ex-players and managers association, there's about 180 to 200 people there every year. And it's great. It's great talking to all your old mates. And I still see a few people that I was at Wycombe with. Kenny Wilson, I still see. Kevin Collins, one or two others. I mean, Bobby Dell was a great lad, and he passed away as well. But we used to sit on the table together. Anton's still about. Yeah, it's a massive part of your life, and my view is you should make it last as long as you possibly can.
No, absolutely. And overall, how would you say you look back at your time at the club?
Oh, it's brilliant. I mean, it ended slightly acrimoniously, but that's neither here nor there now. But yeah, I loved it. Absolutely loved it. I would love to have still been there, to be honest. But it's one of those things. That's what football does. It kind of gives you lots of highs. It gives you one or two lows as well.
Well, it's been brilliant to share your memories, and great to speak to you again. Thank you so much indeed for your time.
Okay, pleasure.
Real pleasure to speak to Alan Gage, former Wycombe Wanderers manager, making his second appearance on the show, if you're counting. You're probably not. Something I'd like to share with you as well from memory from that time. That was around the sort of time that I started following Wycombe as well. But on the Wycombe Wanderers Ex-Players Association Facebook page, really interesting to read Peter's comment. He said he was at the game. That's the York City FA Cup third round tie from '86. It was in the era when the club used to run football special charter trains to matches. And he says, we went from Wycombe to York on one of those. It was very icy weather and it was touch and go whether the game would actually go ahead. The pitch was a bit of an ice rink, but the better side won. At that stage, he says, we were doing okay in our first season in the conference and still in all the cups. Unfortunately, though, fixture congestion caught up with us in the end, and we went out went out there and also got relegated as well. Never mind, all came good in the end in the years after that. So fantastic to, as you heard from Alan Gage there, hear about obviously the relegation when he first took charge, but also brilliant to hear about the promotion as well, and from the Isthmian League, and some of those brilliant names, of course, who I'm sure many of us still remember watching and played a key part in getting the club where they are today. More from the Wycombe Wanderers Ex-Players Association on next week's show. A reminder, their annual dinner is on the 15th of November. We spoke to Scott McLeish recently. Was it last week? I think it might have been. Quite recently. He'll be one of the special guests at that show, at that dinner, marking 30 years in the Football League. You can check out the Wycombe Wanderers Ex-Players Association Facebook page, and also website as part of the club website as well for more details on that.
Across High Wycombe and South Buckinghamshire. and on your smart speaker.
Play Wycombe Sound.
This is Wycombe Sound.
Final part of this week's Wycombe Wanderers Show. What, already? I know, it soon comes round, doesn't it? Still to come, we'll hear from manager Matt Bloomfield speaking at the media session earlier today ahead of Saturday's game against Peterborough United with a 12:30 kick-off as well. We'll let you know some revised bus times so you can get to the ground and back easily as well. You don't even have to worry about parking or taking the car. But first, let's turn our attention to Wycombe Wanderers women, who themselves were in FA Cup action last weekend. 3-3 it finished at home to Comets. Unfortunately, they went out 3-1 on penalties. But one of the goal scorers, or the goal scorer of the penalties, was Giulia Livi, who returned to the club, re-signed last September, briefly left the previous February to go to Wimbledon under-23s because of the earlier finishing of the Wycombe Wanderers women's season. There's some background there. Born in Italy, you'd be pleased to know. I mention it because she says shortly in our chat that she grew up obviously in Italy, but it might not be obvious to you. More on that later. But yes, as you can imagine, Giulia, very pleased to be involved in the Wycombe Wanderers women's team. And let's find out more, though, a little bit about her footballing journey.
I probably started playing football properly maybe when I was like 15, 16. Like before that, obviously I lived in Italy, so the girls' football there is not exactly developed, or at least it wasn't. So I was actually doing dance for most of my life, then it just wasn't for me. So yeah, no, not a very early age.
And what was the process like for sort of finding your preferred position?
I was always quite like an attacking sort of player, but I guess like just by playing in different teams and like seeing where, I was better off, you just end up finding like the position you're best at, I guess.
No, absolutely. And how would you describe your time at the club so far? Because you must have already, in the comparatively short time, seen quite a lot of change.
Yeah, I am having a good time. Everyone's very lovely, friendly. Training is a very high standard, and I feel like the club is, is quite professional in how they deal with things. However, with professionalism comes, I guess, competition, like between teammates and starting squad, this, that. So, it has been tough.
Do you quite welcome that in a way? Because it's quite nice, isn't it, to sort of compete and to sort of push yourself, I guess, and see your own game development as well?
Yeah. I do like the competitiveness, to be honest. I feel like it never lets people get comfortable, which is good. And, I feel like it pushes people to be better and to work harder. I
know when we spoke to you before, you must have noticed a real kind of interest in women's football generally, but also at a local level as well, with more supporters getting behind the team.
Yeah, honestly, and on the, in the FA Cup last weekend, we actually achieved like record attendance. I think it was like 180 something, which is great to see, honestly. Like any sort of exposure is brilliant. And, seeing like especially all the little mascots, the little girls that come watch, and they're so happy to see us and take pictures and this and that. It's really nice to see grow.
No, absolutely. And it's so exciting to be in the FA Cup as well. And you must have been so much looking forward to playing at that level. And it was all looking so good as well, going ahead in the game, but they pulled it back and to go out on penalties as well.
Yeah. It was quite a shame because we were ahead for most of the game, really. And then in the last, 20 minutes or so, they somehow managed to get ahead of us. I feel like as a team, we probably just got a bit too comfortable with the result of us being ahead. And then, that's the beauty of the game. Like when you least expect it, anything can happen really. And yeah, we ended up going to penalties. Didn't go the way we wanted to, but it's another lesson learned from the team, and I'm sure Carl and the rest of the management, they've all learnt something from it. So, yeah, we go again this Sunday.
And pleasing for yourself to get some game time as well. I guess you must have really hoped that you could have made an impact, and getting to score the penalty as well, it must have been a great feeling.
Yeah, I didn't actually get much game time, unfortunately, but, I guess that happens. It's very difficult to make decisions, especially when you only have 5 subs to make. There were 7 of us there. It was going to be tough regardless. So, and I'm glad that I at least got some, opportunity to make an impact. And, I guess I scored my penalty, so I guess I did what I had to do. But Some of my teammates didn't even get to play, so I still need to look on the bright side of things and, see that at least I did get some game time, even though it wasn't as much as I had hoped.
No, absolutely, and you've shown that should penalties be required in future or any games that you'll be a good option for yourself to be taking them. Yeah, exactly. And to show what I can do whenever I can. So. And I guess as well, it's the sort of unknown really nature of teams, especially in the cup, but also in the league. I guess as well, you're not necessarily sure what you'll be coming up against. Yeah, of course, because especially we went into Sunday they do play in a lower league than us, and we were hoping for a better result. However, you never know what to expect because they could be bringing players from another team or dual signings. You don't know, honestly. So even from the management perspective, it's they can watch footage or this or that, but there's not much you can do. And I guess, Sunday just wasn't our day, and that happens in football. You're not always going to play at your best. And it was really interesting speaking to Axel before the game as well, because she was saying, she doesn't really focus on the opposition or not really interested in what they're bringing, because, it's your team that's the focus, and, such belief in the Wycombe side, whoever, you come up against, whether it's the league or the cup. Well, yeah, of course. And I feel as a team, we know what we can do. When we play our best, I feel we are quite a challenging opposition to play against. However, again, it just wasn't our day, and it just wasn't meant to be, which is why, it ended up being 3-3, and then we ended up losing at penalties. But, as a team, we all know that we can play so much better than that. So, obviously, we're put down by their result, but I don't think it shows who we are as a team. No, sure, and nice in a way that you can kind of, bounce back positively, and because I think things seem to be going quite well in this stage of the season for you as a team. Yeah, overall, I think we're doing quite well so far, anyways. And yeah, there's no point on the losses. You just have to focus on what's ahead, and the cup game on Sunday is what we're looking at right now, and we're just going to focus on that. What's in the past is in the past. Of course. We wish you every success for the game on Sunday. And what's it like for yourself, just sort of combining, training and playing, and also with, your outside world and sort of studying at uni as well? Yeah, it is tough, to be honest, because, I'm always up and doing something. I'm always here, there and everywhere. But it's also, nice. I like being busy. I don't like just sitting around having nothing to do. But, it does get a lot sometimes, especially when, you go out of your way to train all the time, and then you might not get the result you wanted or the game time you wanted. It can get a lot, but this is what we sign up for I guess what you could call semi-professional football. So, no, of course. And do you set yourself individual and collective targets of things that you'd like to achieve this season? Yeah, of course. I feel for me an achievement is obviously trying to get as much game time as possible, but also trying to improve as a player as much as possible, be an impact player for the team, whether that's assist or goals or, be a great defender, whatever it is. I feel just improvement in general. And, I'm sure you know that we are striving for promotion as a club. So obviously that's part of the targets, I guess, overall. No, absolutely. And does it feel with yourself and the rest of the players as well that this could be a real season where that could be achievable with all that's been kind of built so far? Yeah, so far I feel we're doing well. Obviously nothing is nothing's promised, right? So we just have to keep right now. We're obviously going to improve as the time goes by, because we still have the whole of winter to train and stuff like that. So yeah, I feel if we keep going the way we're going, it's possible. Let's just say that. Let's not say anything else. Let's just say it's possible. No, excellent. And does it feel like a really exciting time to be involved with the team, with the mix of youth and experience and some of the new signings that have come in over the summer as well? Yeah, definitely. I feel even from last season, there's a complete difference in the team of how, things are handled or the professionalism. It's really nice to be part of a team like this. Honestly, the opportunities that come from being part of Wycombe are incredible, I say. Well, it's fantastic to speak to you again. Wish you all the best for the upcoming games. Thank you so much, Niamh, for your time.
Thank you.
Brilliant chatting to Giulia Livi, who's making her second appearance on the show. Next week we'll be chatting to Kayla Potter, who's one of the new signings who've arrived. If you're following the Chair Girls, they're away on Sunday to Newport Pagnell Town. That's in the County Cup. Before that, Wycombe Wanderers development team, they're at home to Abingdon United development team. If you're wondering how the under-18s are getting on Saturday, there's no game this week. It's not really an update, is it? They're not playing. They're through to the next round of the Cup. So wishing the under-18s all the best as well. Let's now, though, build up to Wycombe Wanderers. Next home game of the season, the men's team. It feels like with the international break, we've waited long enough, haven't we? And if you are planning to get to and from Adams Park, but you're not wanting to take your car, there are some revised carousel bus times to let you know about as well. Departing from the train station in Wycombe at 10:10, 11 o'clock and 10 to 12. The service will be arriving at the bus station in town 5 minutes later and then dropping off at Hillbottom Road at 10:27. Very precise. 17 minutes past 11 and then 7 minutes past midday. So that'll just get you there in time for that 12:30 kick-off. The return journey leaves Adams Park at 2:55, 5 to 4. And then there's another one at 4:15, which will give you the opportunity to stay behind for a post-match drink before heading back into the town as well. Like this little travel news on the show. It's very informative, isn't it? You can view the timetables online at carouselbuses.co.uk and also track the buses' live route via their app as well. Also worth pointing out that the 32 and 32A will also be in operation where the buses drop off at the Hourglass pub. Do check your journeys before you travel. Often set to be quite busy around that area, and there are quite a few roadworks around the area as well at the moment. So it has turned into travel news. Don't often do travel news on the Wycombe Wanderers Show. Could be quite a regular thing. Also, just to let you know about, thanks to the Wycombe Wanderers Trust, there will be Supporters Trust. There'll be some face painting on Saturday as well. So if you want to get involved in that for your lunchtime kickoff, you can show your true colours by having a face painted. It's free. Thanks to the Wycombe Wanderers Supporters Trust, you'll find them at the gazebo outside the Caledonian Suite ahead of kickoff on Saturday. It'll be open from 10:30, so you can get your face painted a couple of hours before kickoff. Share your selfies on social media. You'll be encouraged to do that afterwards, and tag the Trust as well at WWS Trust. That's on X and Instagram as well. The Trust table will be collecting tinned donations as well for One Can Trust, the food bank based in Wycombe and supporting the south of Buckinghamshire as well. They'll be selling their badges for Prostate Cancer UK in honour of Bill Turnbull as well. So do look out for that. That's on Saturday, as I say, the earlier kickoff of 12:30. If you're planning on going to the game at 3 on Saturday, you'll miss it. Let's now catch up with manager Matt Bloomfield, who spoke to the media earlier on today, and of course not having a game on Saturday because of the international break. Quite a lot's happened since we last caught up with him, though. He was nominated for Manager of the Month, as we mentioned with Phil a little earlier on. That went to Steve Bruce, but a fantastic record in September. The club doing really well as well. They had a behind-closed-doors match against QPR, which we touched on last week as well with Phil, seeing the return of Brandon Hanlon, and the draw for the FA Cup as well. All covered with the manager. A real kind of feel-good feel at the club as well, especially on that unbeaten run of 7 league games.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that the boys know that they've put in a lot of hard work over the first period of the season, but we've done a little bit of reflecting on what's been and gone. We've zoomed out a little bit and had a little bit of an overview of the season that's been, what's been good for us, what do we need to continue, what do we need to improve on. There's plenty of improvements that we still need to make. So whilst there's a good buzz around the place, there's certainly no one getting beyond their station. And there's a lot of hard work to come, and there's a lot of improvement we still want to make. And we're up against a really, really tough opposition on Saturday, so we have to take that good feeling and use it and run with that energy. But we also have to remain very, very focused on the tasks ahead.
This will be the 10th league game of the season. Is that a point where you perhaps gauge kind of where you are in terms of how things are kind of fallen, if you like, after all the changes that have been made in the summer and preparations for the new season?
I think in isolation, it's a very exciting game against extremely good opposition who play with a lovely philosophy and the way they go about their business at Peterborough. I've got a huge amount of respect for Darren and his staff and the way that they play. So I think it's going to be a really exciting game against them. And then we quickly move on to Burton and Orient. So I don't think there's much time to really take a breath. We have to just keep focusing and keep being relentless in our pursuit of improvement. And what will happen with the table and with the season will be, mate, I'm not one to really look at it too much. I genuinely don't. I just want us to be the best that we can be, keep improving the best we possibly can, and hopefully pick up some good results along the way.
I guess it'll be an eagerly awaited game for fans, obviously, because the last time we played Peterborough was in the cup final. But I guess that doesn't play too much into your preparations and motivation for the game.
No, I've just said it to the club website. I think that we played 3 really, really good games against Peterborough last season. I think that in many ways the performance away from home in the 2-2 draw was one of our better ones over the course of the season. I thought we were excellent on the day, albeit with quite a few different personnel from now and a different formation. But I think each of those 3 games were very good footballing games between 2 very good teams. And I think that there's been an evolution in both sides since last season in terms of personnel. So we know the threats that Peterborough hold, and we respect them, and we admire a lot of what they do, but we're also keen on what we're doing at the moment, and we want to make sure that we bring that on Saturday.
Phil was saying earlier that there's bound to be goals. He wasn't sure on the odds of a 0-0, but there should certainly be goals at Adams Park on Saturday lunchtime.
Well, we hope so, absolutely. But too many people have said that at the moment, so I'm a bit worried that everyone's jinxing it's going to be 0-0. But no, we hope for a really entertaining game, Colin. We hope for the 2 teams that we know play with the identity and style that both teams do. We expect it to be a very good game between 2 good teams, and we hope to bring our best selves. So we need to make sure we're ready to come out of the traps. Peterborough have played twice since we last played, so they're obviously going to be up and running and ready to go. So we've got to make sure that we're also ready to go on Saturday lunchtime.
And obviously had that practice game at QPR since we last spoke to you. And I think fans are really excited at the prospect of Brandon Hanlon coming back as well.
Yeah, I'm so pleased because, I've done that injury myself in the past, and I know how much hard work it takes to come back. So I'm so pleased for Brands to be back amongst the group. He's been out training with us for a little while. He got 20 minutes at QPR, which is absolutely fantastic. It's our responsibility to him and to our football club to bring him back in the right manner and to expose him to minutes as and when we can. We're looking to try and arrange another game for him in the next little while, and then we've got some games coming up that he might be able to participate in, and we bring up to speed as quickly as possible. But the biggest shame for Brands was he was in absolutely fantastic form, as good as I've ever seen him play when he done his injury, which was a crying shame for him personally, but for us as a football club. If you look at the threat that we had at the top of the pitch before and after his injury during that early winter months last year, it really cost us. So to have him back and around it, having his smile and his personality and the way he goes about his work is absolutely great. So it's just lovely to see him fit, and we hope to welcome him back into the first team as soon as physically possible.
What were your thoughts for the first round of the FA Cup when that draw was made?
It's going to be a tough game. I know, obviously I know Hinch fairly well. He used to play for us, going back a few years, and I know that the job that he did down at Worthing was fantastic. He's got his York team playing really, really well, doing well in the National League. But to be at home was my only request from that draw. So we got a home draw, so we have to be pleased about that.
Great chat to the manager. Wish him and the team all the best on Saturday, of course, taking on Peterborough United at Adams Park. It's a 12:30 kick-off. If you're going to the game, Tom trying to get on the bus and back as well. If you're not going to Adams Park, you'll hear the whole match live here on Wycombe Sound. As I say, kick-offs at 12:30. I think you've got the idea. Thank you very much indeed for listening. Thank you so much to all the guests this week as well. And we'll be back at the same time next week, also after that game against Burton Albion.